The Juanita Broaddrick story is interesting because I think at the time, and I was in high school and college. I was in high school when Bill Clinton was elected and in college. And the degree to which I was engaged in this conversation was probably less than at any other time in my life. I sort of generally was like, yay, I love Bill Clinton. And that, it wasn't the moment of extreme political engagement to me. So I'm not sure if I am speaking accurately about the general feeling in the media at the time. But I don't remember the Juanita Broaddrick allegations of rape being taken particularly seriously at the time, except by factions of the right wing. And that is symptomatic of, the way that many women's stories of assault are not taken seriously, and also with the sort of complexity of the moment. What was the left, that should have been perhaps more engaged in determining whether or not there was any veracity there? How were they going to approach this with a president who, partway through the term, the left wasn't so thrilled with Bill Clinton. But this was a real quandary. I do remember the Monica story, and I remember understanding even at the time that while it was complicated because both people in it acknowledged that it was consensual, it was a tremendous abuse of power. And therefore, I think absolutely fell in the category of sexual harassment. He was the president of the United States. She was an intern in the White House. But that conversation didn't happen in earnest. And I think it did a lot of harm to the credibility and the seriousness with which we took this issue. And I think it's right that we're going back and reexamining it right now.
Do you think Clinton should have been permitted to continue in office?
Oh, gosh. That's a really hard question. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Do you?
I struggle with this.
Ezra? I'm really curious.
I don't. No, I don't. But here's the one place where I struggle.
Yeah.
I think Clinton should have resigned.
Yeah.
And I think the Democratic Party should have forced him to resign to the extent it can. The tricky thing is, and it's funny, I'm doing, for other reasons, a lot of work on impeachment and its historical dimensions, just randomly, not apropos of anything. The perjury charge was completely trumped up.
Right.
And so on the one hand, I don't believe that he should have been impeached on the charges Republicans brought against him. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I believe his abuse of power. And I said this before, actually, oddly enough, the first episode of this podcast was with Rachel Maddow. And I asked her to say an opinion she holds that other people think is wrong. And she said that Clinton should have resigned. And I was like, yes, that's also one of my unusual opinions. Mm-hmm. It was only later when I began to get into politics and I looked back at that story because, I didn't pay that much attention. I was young, that I was just really shocked. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about the Juanita Broaddrick stuff actually until Dylan Matthews did an explainer on it a couple of years ago. Right. But Lewinsky, it's just such an extraordinary and immoral abuse of power that I don't know. I found it I'm kind of moralistic. I found it very shocking. The question, I think, and this is actually what my other impeachment piece is about, is it isn't clear to me there's a good remedy for that kind of thing. Right. Impeachment tends to be a remedy for criminality. It doesn't have to be, but it tends to be. And so while I think Clinton should have resigned, and I think the way to get him to resign would have been for the Democratic Party to basically abandon its support of him.
Right.
It isn't, by the same token, I'm not sure I believe that the impeachment proceeding should have succeeded. So that's my somewhat complicated opinion on this.
Let me say this.